President Donald Trump has been canceled, but should he be impeached? Sit by and watch this episode of Guns and Gadgets, and let's talk about it. Hey everybody, welcome back to Guns and Gadgets, your premier source for Second Amendment news. Let's get into what happened yesterday, January 6th, 2021, a day that no matter what side of the aisle you're on, no matter what your political belief is, will go down in history. So it's being now that we're a day later, you're seeing the headlines after people have time to figure out what will sell. You're seeing headlines from anything from a coup, an insurrection, the second time that the Capitol was under siege and stormed in the history of the country to anything in between. So I figured we'll have an open little discussion here. Well, I guess it's kind of one-sided because it's recorded, but the comment section down below is where you can sound off. Let's talk it out. And if you're not a subscriber to Guns and Gadgets, please consider doing so, as this channel is I think the bedrock of Second Amendment news, where we get it out just as fast as it happens, and sometimes it's interrupted by major events on our freedom, and that's what yesterday seems to be shaking out to be. So we'll talk about the event and what it was being billed at and what events were actually scheduled for the day, and then we'll work our way into what took place. And I'm going to try to stay chronological and not keep this that long. So yesterday there was an actual rally that was being held, and it was the Wild Protest, I believe is what it was called. Now, for those who aren't in the know of what actually was scheduled, the Wild Protest had nothing to do with the speech that the president did yesterday, or that location that the president was. And if you're familiar with Washington, D.C., it's the Ellipse, which is right by the White House. The Wild Protest was scheduled for 1 p.m., and it was on the lawn of the Capitol on the back side of the building, and they had several speakers who were supposed to address the crowd, and that was scheduled, and that was one of the reasons people were going, was the main reason that people were going down to D.C. in the beginning of this planning of the event or what took place. Now, after that, it was known for a few days that this Wild Protest was happening, and it became more and more relevant to Donald Trump and his people that the courts were not taking up his arguments for the election and whether the results were stolen or fabricated or falsified, fraud, however you want to insert your definition. That was not being taken up by the courts, and I think to this moment that I'm recording it, I think it's just over 60 courts have said we're not taking it up. And I told you in the very beginning of all this, if you remember when we were talking about the election, I think it was actually election night that I went on. Typically, courts in history will not get involved to change an election, specifically a presidential one. It's very rare to get a court to take that up. So once that was taking place, then the president came out on his Twitter, and he he asked people to come down. I'll see you there. And on the preface, it was being sold as that he will be releasing all of his evidence on that day. And in fact, a couple days earlier, just prior to the Georgia U.S. Senate runoff election, he was in Georgia for a rally and said on stage that he was going to release all the information and all that evidence, and it was going to be huge. So a lot of people were waiting for that. Now let's fast forward to the event. So Donald Trump was scheduled to speak at the Ellipse at 11 o'clock, and that was to start at 9 o'clock. And again, the president was going to speak at 11. That started off with a couple speakers, including Eric Trump, Don Jr., and more of the family. And then it led up to the 11 o'clock time slot. The president didn't come out. He was late. I believe he came out at 11:40-ish. And during his speech, what I'll tell you that I am very well aware of is, if you've seen any of his rallies talking about the election, post-election results, they've had a very familiar script, talking about the same stuff, pushing the same issues, getting the same type of information known to people. Now, we know what we have seen on tape in Georgia and other places, but it's not what you know or believe, it's what you can prove when it comes to court cases. So that's where the issue was. So people were hoping that the president was going to, give solid details and have a plan of action. Now, people were shouting on Constitution Avenue, which is the street just that borders the ellipse. We know this. You've called us here. What do you want us to do? Lead? What should we do about it? And those comments from different people started to build a little bit of a groundswell, if you will. So his speech went on and on and on, and it didn't have any type of damning information, rock solid evidence, like leading to specifics. Like, today we are booking person A because he did this. That's what I mean when I mean solid evidence. Evidence that can be acted upon. So that was starting to fester in the crowd, and there were certain people in the crowd that were very, very much more vocal about that than others. So during the speech, and some of the speech stuff, guys and gals, I'm not going to put it on here. You guys can search it. It's well documented what was said by the president and other speakers. But he did say that President Trump did say that he was going to be there with you. He was going to march down to the Capitol and hold the representatives accountable. I'm paraphrasing, but he wanted us, the people, to hold our representatives accountable related to the election fraud. And it was the same day, coincidentally, that Congress was taking up the Electoral College votes from each state. Now, when this speech was over, people headed to the Capitol. Some people were heading to the Capitol because at the 1 o'clock hour was supposed to start the other protest that was on the Capitol grounds. Other people were going because they were fired up from the president's speech. Other people were going because they were kind of fired up from the speech within the speech, if you will. There were people also saying, there's enough of us, let's just take care of it now. Other people were going for other reasons, apparently. So everybody, there were a lot of people, guys and gals. I mean, it was packed. You've seen the videos, you've seen photos, I'm sure. So Pennsylvania Avenue was packed, Constitution Avenue was packed, 15th Ave, 16th, everything was packed. And the Washington Monument lawn was covered, the National Mall, and all those people headed towards the U.S. Capitol. Now, what did we see when we got to the Capitol area? We were approaching the back of the building. They have some scaffolding up. We saw people on the scaffolding, waving flags. Far too many people were on the scaffolding than should be. And in fact, I said to somebody, somebody's going to get hurt or worse out here. But all in all, a vast majority of the people were being patriotic, chanting USA, waving flags, whether it was a Trump flag, a Gadsden flag, an American flag, an older version, 1776 flag. They had all kinds of pretty cool stuff out there. And then some folks got into it with the Capitol Police. Now, what we saw from the back were some people start to climb the rear steps of the Capitol. And then we heard flashbangs go off. We saw Capitol Police officers lobbing tear gas into the crowd and flashbangs in an attempt to hold people at bay. And I remember saying this when they were tear gassing people and flashbanging people. I said that this is going to make it worse because look at in the last 6 months, whether it's the Black Lives Matter or the BLM protests, and when they turned violent, if police used tear gas or whatever, it typically made the scenario worse, especially after this defund police movement is looking to stop that stuff, correct? But unless you're the Capitol Police, I guess they actually praised that last night. So it did exactly that. It infuriated the people who were trying to get up the steps. They called on more people. It kind of incited a little bit of a riot. Now, I'm not saying it was just the Capitol Police's response that incited this. There were definitely people who were in the crowd agitating and trying to drive people to do things. And if you're familiar with psychology, it doesn't take but a couple people in a crowd that can get people fired up and motivated. And that, to some point, is what happened. Now, I'm not saying that those people who were stoking the flames were 100% responsible. Absolutely not. Every person there was an adult and they made their own decision. I also want to stop real quick that the actual identification did come out yesterday after the fact. The lady who tragically lost her life in the Capitol. Her name is Ashley Babbitt. She's a veteran of the United States Air Force. She did 14 years. And originally, the initial reports came out, had a different name, and it was attached to a teenage female. It was a rapid moving situation from them getting into the building to the shooting happening to the initial reports coming out from people either on scene or in the crowd. And the initial reporting had a different name. So we do know that the victim is Ashley Babbitt. May she rest in peace. And I will also say that that situation that happened is on video from multiple angles. The person who pulled the trigger and shot an unarmed person in the neck should be held absolutely 100% responsible, because Ashley Babbitt was not at all, not a lethal threat. People make their way in. The Capitol Police are easily overcome. I mentioned several times that the police presence was not what you typically see in an event where they're estimating millions of people were going to show up. The amount of security on the perimeter of the ellipse was minimal. The amount of security police presence at the Capitol for the amount of people that were there was minimal. So even if you had a crowd that was going to be, you knew it was going to be 100% peachy, squeaky clean, that the presence of the police was really minimal to have for that many people for crowd control if it was needed. But that definitely, I think, is something that needs to be noticed, was that there was a very small level of security for the capital of the free world, where they were anticipating 1 million plus people coming. And the initial rally that was scheduled was to protest the election process and how they believed it wasn't free and fair. So then you have the whole to-do of what happened actually in the Capitol building. Photos and videos came out, many of which I have posted on Instagram and Facebook, so check those out if you haven't seen them. But by now, they're readily searchable and out there. However, I will tell you that Facebook has said that they're going to ban and delete anything related to that. So my pictures are currently still up if you want to check them out. They might not be for long, but I did remove the video of the shooting because I'm trying not to have the channel banned, obviously. So that stuff happened inside the Capitol building. There was a gentleman sitting at Nancy Pelosi's desk. Her computer was left on. Her email was left open. Her hard drive was taken, as well as maybe some physical mail and physical items from her office. You know, they were in the chamber, sitting in Nancy Pelosi's chair. Her podium, her dais was taken. So people make their way into the building. Distress call was made to the vice president requesting National Guard, and also almost immediately Mayor Bowser put out a 6 p.m. curfew, and you could hear sirens. They were coming. When I say they, white vans were pulling up with cops in their monkey suits, I call them, where it's their riot gear. They had their batons, they had their helmets, they had all the gear on. And then the call went out to the vice president for the National Guard. And the National Guard was summoned to help clear the Capitol. The FBI strike team showed up, and other teams from other sections of law enforcement, federal law enforcement, were there as well. So something that started out with people wanting to go protest peacefully, 99% of the people wanted to do it peacefully, turned into this historic event that, if you look into it, I believe there's more behind. And this is why I'm doing this video as well. You've seen things saying it was an insurrection attempt or a coup, and those came from Mitt Romney and Chucky Schumer. That the president was trying to incite a riot and incite this violence in an attempt to overthrow the election process. I can't say that I believe that. Doesn't mean that his intentions weren't that, but I will say that I don't believe that to its core. But it wasn't an insurrection. It wasn't a coup. It wasn't an attempted takeover. However, there were enough people there that if people wanted to overthrow the Capitol and take control of their government, they could have. But what I will say is this has definitely turned into cancel culture on the president. The president has been canceled. Last night, his Twitter account was secured. He was blocked out of Twitter. He was blocked out of Instagram. He was blocked out of Facebook. He was blocked out of Twitch today. He's been blocked out of Spotify. Some financial backers have pulled out. Last night, the chief of staff for his wife, Melania, quit. Yesterday, it came out that Trump had also barred the chief of staff of the vice president, Mike Pence, from the White House yesterday. Trump called out Vice President Pence yesterday. So there was a lot of stuff going on. But with that said, this appears to be an orchestrated event. Could it just be coincidence? You decide. Not going to push your scale one way or another, but what I'm going to do is tell you that while this was going on, the Capitol buildings in other states were they're being reported as attacked as well, but the people rose up. In fact, the crowd, the rioters, the protesters actually were trying to force their way into Governor Inslee's mansion in Washington. Now, again, sorry for jumping around, but things that I saw are it's tough to put a timeline on them and make it easier for people, but the Capitol Police as well were involved. They were letting people in the perimeter to the Capitol. I have it from a couple different angles.
Police are squabbling with protesters. Oh, there we go. And they just breached the Capitol again.
Now, yes, the protesters did go over a barricade on one side of the building, but they were let in on other sides of the building. So was this orchestrated? Again, you have the other capitals that were attacked. You have the U.S. Capitol that was attacked. You have Capitol Police, who should have had more numbers there based off the crowd alone, the size of the crowd. Then they were letting people into the perimeter, which allows them access to the Capitol. There's just a lot going on. Make with that what you will, but there's a lot going on. But it is true, yes, Antifa was there. Their buses were escorted in by DC Metro. Yes, BLM members were there. Facial recognition plus easy searches on the internet has produced that as fact as well. Was this something that they planned on doing? I don't know. Were they there because they were sick and tired of the lies that government is perpetuating and how much they're disregarding the U.S. Constitution or the voices of the people? Or is that the reason they were there? Quite possibly. And if so, I applaud them. However, to put this on Trump supporters is 100% wrong. Were some involved? Absolutely. Absolutely. But there was more than just that. In fact, as I'm doing this video right now, my phone is blowing up with identifications of other activists from BLM and Antifa that were in the crowd. So take of that what you will. It was not something that is being made out to be. They're turning this to be that it was Donald Trump inciting his followers to go to storm the castle, and it wasn't that. Did his speech play a little part? Possibly. Did the anger that people have over this whole process and how sickened they become with how little their representatives seem to care or value them? Possibly. Could it be people who are sick and tired of the Constitution not being followed? Possibly. As people who were led by people in the group to do things that they might not have would have done on their own? Possibly. Were there other factors? Possibly. But I'll tell you what it's led to. Like I said, the president has been canceled, and right now they are discussing his removal under the 25th Amendment for him being unfit for duty. Last night it started. Members in the House were discussing presenting the vice president with an argument to invoke the 25th Amendment to remove the president. Now you have today comments from Chuck Schumer not too long ago that said if the vice president won't step up and do the right thing under the 25th Amendment, then we'll move to impeach. You have word came out that some of the president's cabinet members were discussing the removal for being unfit under the 25th as well. But as of yet, I have not heard that they have gone to the vice president with it. There's a lot going on. And in fact, just moments ago, from the time I'm recording this, Nancy Pelosi called Vice President Pence. She was put on hold for 25 minutes, and then she was told that the Vice President wouldn't take her call. She was calling to pressure the VP into the 25th Amendment move. So there's a lot of moving parts right now. In fact, by the time you're watching this, some things might have changed from the information that is fact right now. But I just wanted to discuss all that. Let me know, guys and gals, if you have some questions, comments. I do know that some of you all were there, and you might have seen different things that I didn't. So please share that down below. But it was historic, one way or the other. No matter what you think happened yesterday, it was historic. And at the end of the day, actually, it was the beginning of today. It was in the early hours of the morning. The Electoral College votes have been certified. And Joe Biden is officially the president-elect. The Department of Defense moments ago just said that they were going to start the transition process with him as well. And we do know that the U.S. Senate seats in Georgia went to the Democrats, so we do now have a Democrat-controlled legislature, both the House and the Senate, as well as the White House. So the next couple of years until the midterms are going to be freaking hell if you're a gun owner. I've said it a couple times. For months I've been saying it. Let's pull together. Let's not say, oh, what you did was wrong, or you're saying this and I don't believe you and I think it's something different. You're either for the Second Amendment or you're not. You're either for the Constitution or you're not. So let's pull together, because I think yesterday's events are just the tip of the iceberg. I think it was quite possibly is a spark for something more to come, and what happens from there remains to be seen. But we're going to need each other, guys and gals. If you want news on the Second Amendment, no matter where it happens, you know you can find it here on Guns and Gadgets. Please subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, and we'll see what more is coming. I mean, my phone is literally blowing up. So we'll see what else comes down the pipe as far as facts. And there's some people out there that say fact schmacks, that they're going to believe what they want to believe. But that is what is going on. Until we see each other again, be safe. Stay vigilant, carry a weapon. I'll see you on the next one. Take care, everybody.